I'm going to call the meeting to order. It's the City Council meeting of March the 6th, 2023. Will you please call roll, Madam Clerk?
Yes, ma'am. Councilmember Burt?
Here.
Mayor Koo?
Here.
Councilmember Lowing?
Here.
Councilmember Lithcott-Hames?
Here.
Councilmember Stone?
Here.
Thank you. Our first item is special orders of the day. We're going to adopt a resolution honoring Roland Rivera for 21 years of service to the city of Palo Alto.
Great, thank you. Good evening, Mayor, and good evening, City Council. Jonathan Late, Director for Planning and Development Services. Thank you for the opportunity to take some time on your agenda this evening to honor and recognize a veteran to our nation and 21-year employee to the city of Palo Alto. Roland Rivera worked in the Planning and Development Services Department. He started his career as an associate planner and worked his way up through various positions, retiring last week as the senior business analyst overseeing the city's data analysis and technology team. Roland was a valued public employee. He often worked in the background, and his impact, though, was felt by many, including those who may have used the city's online property parcel reports, checked on the status of an application through Building Eye, or pulled a building permit during the pandemic. He's the one who helped us get that whole system online. I say he does it. He will tell me that he had a bunch of people helping him with it. He's very kind. He's a little quiet, but his dedication to his work, his commitment to this organization, and the support that he has for his team has never been questioned. I know I speak for everybody in the Planning and Development Services Department and many in the organization when I say he will be missed. And Madam Mayor, I think he would like to come up at the appropriate time, either after the resolution, just to say a couple of words. So I'll defer to you on that. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Late. If it's okay, Mr. Rivera, if we can give you the resolution first, if we may read it first. Oh, I'm sorry. It's Mr. Rivera over there. Thank you.
Mayor Koo asked me to read this resolution, which she has signed, and I'm happy to do so, having benefited from you for 6 years on the Planning Commission and your work that you've done over there as well. So this is expression of appreciation to Roland Rivera upon your retirement. Whereas Roland Rivera began his career with the city of Palo Alto on July 2nd, 2001, and has provided exemplary service throughout his 21-year tenure. And whereas Roland Rivera has enthusiastically served the citizens of Palo Alto for over 2 decades, supporting planning and development services and leading the department-wide transition of data and technology efforts. And whereas Roland Rivera began as an associate planner, supporting long-range planning for almost 18 years, and contributed to the development and adoption of 3 city housing elements and 1 comprehensive plan. Wow. And whereas Roland Rivera developed the City of Palo Alto GIS parcel report and was awarded the 2007 Innovative Use of Technology Award. And whereas Roland Rivera implemented Building Eye and the 311 CRM system to further customer service. And whereas Roland Rivera built the data group within Planning and Development Services and has mentored and trained a knowledgeable and reliable team. And whereas Roland Rivera was instrumental in providing continuity of services to the planning and development community through the implementation of the online permit system at the start of the pandemic. And whereas Roland Rivera is recognized by his peers and city staff for being a dedicated, knowledgeable, conscientious, dependable, and supportive team member. Now, therefore, let it be resolved that the city of Palo Alto hereby gratefully records and extends its sincere appreciation to Roland Rivera for his dedication and excellent services rendered to the city this day of March 6, 2023, signed by Mayor Koo.
Hi, good afternoon, Mayor Ku, City Council members. I just wanted to thank my wife and my family who's here to support me. They've been supporting me throughout the 21 years here in the city, through the long planning commission meetings and the early morning city council meetings, throughout the three housing elements and the comprehensive plan amendment. Just wanted to thank you for the opportunity to contribute and be a part of the city of Palo Alto and be a part of the community. Thank you so much.
Do we have any public comments? Do I need to pick public comments? You don't think so? Yeah, I would like to invite Mr. Rivera and Mrs. Rivera here to the council, so we can all do a picture together. Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Rivera. Now we're going to go to our second item, special orders of the day, which is selecting applicants for interviews for board and commission openings on the Historic Resources Board, Human Relations Commission, Parks and Recreation Commission, Planning and Transportation Commission, and Utilities Advisory Commission. Do we have a staff report?
Yes, Madam Mayor, we do a brief one. I just wanted to let the council know, because we have some new council members in 2020, the city council changed the process for appointing boards and commissions. They adopted an ordinance establishing a 2-term limit so that any commissioner or board or commission member can only serve 2 consecutive terms. And with that, they also decided to do a consolidated recruitment period that all the new terms would end March 31st, and the old terms would end March 31st, and the new terms would begin April 1st. So we started this, and typically it had been multiple times throughout the year. So this is our first round since the ordinance took effect in 2020. This is our first round doing a single recruitment for the year. We started doing our advertisements in January. We put advertisements in the paper. We send out several digital notices through different distribution lists in different departments. We've reached out directly to community-based organizations or any organizations we could find in Palo Alto that might be interested. We received a record number of applications, which is pretty exciting. But I just wanted to talk to you about the process of appointment. It's still quite vague. We're supposed to advertise for the openings. We're supposed to collect the applications until the deadline. Then when those that are received, we agendize for you at your next regularly scheduled meeting. And then you have the opportunity to review the applications and make final selection and appointment. It doesn't specify any more in detail what you need to do. So I just wanted to make sure you know that. And then here are the openings that we have. We're soliciting applications for 5 different commissions. The Historic Resources Board, we have 3 positions that are open. We received 3 applications. Human Relations Commission, we have 2 positions and 5 applicants. Parks and Recreation Commission, there are 4 open positions and 18 applicants. Planning and Transportation Commission has 3 positions, 11 applicants, and the Utilities Advisory Commission has 4 positions and 18 applicants. The asterisk was because we had 1 applicant who had applied for 2 different boards and they withdrew their application from the UAC. So in the packet, it says there were 19 applications, but there are actually only 18 under consideration right now. Some of these are for expired terms, but there are also people who submitted resignation notices. We also decided to recruit for those as well. That's why there are some additional positions open. Just wanted to, and then as far as your options, what we've agendized for discussion tonight is selecting the applicants that you would like to interview and review for these positions. There are, again, the municipal code is very vague in how you can do that. So here are some options of how you can proceed with reviewing all of these. For the last several years, the city council has chosen to interview all applicants. But this year, since you have 56 applications, it might be kind of time consuming. In addition to all your regularly scheduled meetings, it might be quite burdensome. So you can choose to interview all. You can choose tonight which applicants you'd like to select. You can refer this to the council appointed officer committee if you'd like that committee to interview all or a selected amount of applicants, and then they can make recommendations back to you as a council. You can propose an ad hoc committee or even multiple ad hoc committees, maybe one specific for each of the position or the boards that are open, to interview all or selected applicants and then make recommendations back to the council. These are some practices that we've seen in other cities. It's quite common to do an advisory body or in a ad hoc committee to do the interviews and then make recommendations to the council. That's what many cities in California do. Palo Alto, we do a lot of things different according to what we see the needs of our community to be and what our council decides. So I'm here to answer any questions about the board and commission process, but this decision is up to you tonight.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I just want to commend you on the number of applicants that you have received. You know, obviously your outreach was quite robust. And I just wanted to also mention with the council CAO committee, Madam Attorney, if you can kind of explain between the council CAO committee and the ad hoc committee, what are some of the restrictions and what other areas we are?
So the council, thank you, Madam Mayor. The council CAO committee is not described in your municipal code, but it is a formal committee that's been created by council and has continuing jurisdiction, and that makes it a Brown Act body. So if the council, the city council could add to its assignments and give that committee some of this work, but that committee will need to do its work at a noticed and open public meeting. There's not a basis to go into closed session for the purpose of selecting commission board and commission members. If the council were to create an ad hoc committee with the limited purpose of addressing this large volume of applications this year, then you would have a choice to either direct that ad hoc committee or committees meet publicly, or they could meet informally, and they would not need to be at a noticed meeting, nor would they need to be physically present in the room. They would have more flexibility in terms of conducting their work, doing their work on Zoom. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Attorney. Is there any public comments?
No, there are no requests from the public to speak.
Thank you. In that case, we'll bring it back to council for questions or considerations or even moving it. Councilmember Byrd.
I actually think Councilmember Lithcott-Haynes was up first, so go right ahead.
Councilmember Lithcott-Haynes.
Why, thank you, sir. I just have I think an informational question or a procedural, I'm not quite sure, but it has come to my attention numerous times that the Human Relations Commission is feeling overworked and hoping that they will have their numbers increased by 2. I think they're at 5 now and they want to be 7. And I'm wondering at what point in the order of things would council consider the possibility of increasing the size of the HRC? That's my question. Thank you.
So that's a topic that council could take up. It's not on the agenda today, and it would require an ordinance to do that because the HRC is described in the municipal code as a body with 5 members. So it's up to council. You can increase that to 7. It's not on today's agenda, so it would need to come back on a future agenda.
Can we also clarify if that is going to be by colleagues memo or through a referral? How will that work?
I think it could be through a referral tonight. If you wanted to make that referral again, I don't believe there's much analysis that would be possible from staff on that point, in which case it could largely come back for council consideration and decision.
Thank you.
I'm not sure how to make a referral being new to the council. So if somebody could advise me as to what to say to put that forward, I would appreciate it.
Will help when the time comes with the motion. Councilmember Burke.
Yes. So first, along similar lines of the last year, the council adopted a number of policy changes for appointment processes, and this is the first time we're getting to see the results of those. I had some concerns on a number of them at the time. One was this issue of cutting back on the size of a couple of the commissions that have really done a lot of their work through subcommittees, and having a smaller commission really curtails that possibility. Another that I've been concerned about on the Human Relations Commission for a good number of years is that, unlike a couple of our other commissions like ARB and I think HRB, it requires all commission members to be residents. So somebody who is a longtime worker here who may have valuable insights is ineligible to even be considered for the Human Relations Commission. And I know that we had one very valuable Human Relations Commissioner a number of years ago who had to resign from the commission, even though she remained extremely active in these areas in the city when she moved to an adjacent city. I also have concerns over whether the 2 consecutive terms is what we should apply across the board. And you look, for instance, at the Utilities Advisory Commission appointment or candidates, and we have only one out of the 4 positions that are up, only one is an incumbent. And I think that there may be other factors as to why there's that much turnover, but the loss of so much institutional knowledge at the same time creates a greener commission that really is going to have a harder time getting up to speed to make valuable recommendations to us. The other issue that I had concern with was stacking all the appointments up at one time a year. And there were some reasons why we wanted to make sure that a couple of the appointments were made by the new council. And they were really around the Planning Commission first, and then perhaps the ARB, where there needed to be a better alignment between the council and the commission. It's not a precise one in any way, but I think that there was an interest that there not be have outgoing council members make the appointments of planning commissioners who would necessarily really be at odds with a council perspective, majority perspective. But that didn't mean all these boards and commissions had to be stacked up at the same time. We have 55 applicants. And we're really blessed to have so many capable people who want to apply to our boards and commissions, and not being able to even interview all of them is really discouraging for many people who are willing to step up in a meaningful way to contribute to the community. And yet trying to schedule 55 interviews in this time of year when we are leading up to the budget. So we have these ebbs and flows of our really calendar for the year. And I've been encouraging staff for some time to draft a template of the kinds of things that we have at different times of the year. It's not going to populate everything, but it lets us look at the scheduling to say, this is the light time of year. We should try to look at which discretionary things we can push into that time slot. And this time of year gets jammed up every year. So what we're leading into is the springtime. And the springtime in May and June were dominated by both the budget and getting things forward that are we're not going to be able to do during the vacation month. So we're moving a bunch of stuff forward, and May and June are crazy. And that means that then, because May and June are so full, March and April, we're trying to get stuff ahead of May and June because we know that's jammed up. And we've got this on top of all of it. So I don't think we can fix that at this point in time. We need to go forward with the way we've set it up. But I think that these are several different items that when what we should do on this referral is refer a revisit of the appointments. Then the last issue is how do we do screening or not? And as we haven't talked about how many minutes interview for each position so that we can do some calculations on that. My memory is that we've tended to go 10 minutes on Planning Commission. I'm not sure whether 15 on Planning Commission and 10 everywhere else. So do the math. That's a lot of hours or days of interviews. I would be still inclined for us to spread this out and go through that process. But at the same time, if there was a referral to another body, either an ad hoc or the CAO committee, I would recommend that whether it's legally obligated to do so or not, that those meetings be done in public. Because I don't think it's good practice for us to exclude people without transparency from that interview process. So that's a lot, but when we get going on the motion, I think we can actually simplify that referral by just asking for the procedures for a review of the procedures on board and commission appointments, and we don't have to stipulate what we're going to review. We can just make it simple when it comes to that. Thanks.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Stone.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, a couple of things I definitely already agree with. I agree and happy to include in the motion tonight, expanding HRC from 5 to 7. Having previously chaired the HRC and been a member of that for a while, but 5 members makes little sense. All these are volunteer commissions, and so much of that work is done in subcommittees that we're really stretching them thin when we continue to ask more of that commission. So I'm happy to include that tonight. I do agree with Councilmember Burt as far as referrals. I think a lot of this process needs to be refined. I think we're going to have a good learning opportunity right now to see what works, what doesn't work. Clearly, the volume of applications, I don't think it's what anyone ever expected or intended. It's a good problem to have, but moving forward, being able to have the full council interview all those applicants doesn't seem seems very difficult to do and time consuming. I think a referral to policy and services, not only for what Councilmember Burt was discussing as far as timing of these applications and whether they should all be at one time is a good referral. I also think it would be nice to be able to maybe figure out if we can articulate standards for who may get an interview and who may not. I mean, I'm always kind of brought back to, if you're applying to a job, not everyone is going to get interviewed for that position. I understand this is a little different, but I do think there is maybe a potential chilling effect by making applicants go through this entire process. And I'm wondering, City Manager, could you share that anecdote that you shared with us earlier today in pre-council?
Well, actually, I think it was the city clerk. I'll
Oh,
share one
okay.
of my own, which is that oftentimes with personnel interviews, we've used what we call the rule of five, as in take the number of vacancies you have and interview no more than 5 more. But that's just a rule of thumb that might be useful. City Clerk.
Yes, thank you for the question. So we did, as part of our process, we also reach out to the previous applicants from the last round of interviews and see if they're interested in this application process again. The most recent interview process that we had, not one single person wanted to re-interview. And we were given the impression, based on some of their comments, it was they had submitted their application, they took the time to do the interview, and they were rejected. And so they were not really as excited about serving or throwing their name in the ring again.
Great. Thanks for that. So I do think we want to balance. I understand respecting applicants who take their time to apply, but also respecting, I mean, when we have 18 applicants for 3 positions, not everyone's going to get appointed. If I was in their position, I wouldn't want to have to go through an interview process and go through the stress of preparing for it and the time commitment, just if I never really had a chance. I think we have an opportunity here to be able to winnow those applications down. I think that serves us. I think that serves them. Again, I think that should be something maybe Policy and Services addresses. I think going forward tonight, I like the suggestion of one of these ad hoc committees, and I'm interested in having a discussion tonight, figure out maybe what's the best way. Is it the full council, we kind of split up and having 2-3 members take on different commissions, do the interviews for all those, come back with recommendations for the full council. That way it'll all be recorded and the full council is able to review those and be encouraged to review all those before the time of a vote. I think that seems like a good use of our time, or if there are council members who are interested in interviewing all 56 applicants, that'd be that'd be a lot of time. But so I think an ad hoc would be the way to go tonight for this and learn our lessons from how many applicants we've had, and hopefully Policy and Services can come back with a better process in the future. Thank you.
Madam Mayor, may I interject for just a moment?
Yes.
So the noticed item for tonight is the selection of applicants for board and commissions. So your discussion of process to do that work is appropriate under this item. Some broader ideas have been raised. They really are not, they can't be for action tonight and not even for a full discussion. So we really should notice a subsequent item that informs everyone that council's interested in talking more broadly about the board and commission process, including when applications will be entertained, the size of various board and commissions, and any other ideas that council members have on this topic.
So, Madam Attorney, so would the referral be something that we can do tonight, or is it going to have to?
So I think so.
return?
Just in chatting with the city manager, we can, at the staff level, having heard from council that there's interest in discussing these issues, we can find a time on the agenda. That will be the challenge. So what I would envision is that there's a parallel process here where you're going to do the current work that's before you, that's noticed for tonight. And then there would be a future item on this topic that would allow for a broader discussion for changes going forward.
Very good. Thank you. Councilmember Lowing.
Yes, thanks very much. I also want to join in the congratulations to the city clerk and staff for having creating such a great problem for us. Clearly the word got out, and that's what we wanted, was the word to get out and broadly. And now we'll deal with it. I think the fundamental problem of trying to screen out at this point, which is of course absolutely typical in everywhere in business, is that for a number of these jobs, not something like ARB, which has specifics around architects and so on, there are actually no qualifications. So, and most of them, it's just residency. So I'm not sure how a third party would be able to kind of fairly go through that and say, well, this one has residency and this one has residency, but maybe they haven't done what, because there's no job description. So I'm concerned about that unless we could get a unanimous opinion on that of this body, because what I fear is that someone say, that one doesn't look too good, let's screen them out. And maybe I've spent 10 years with that person, I'm exaggerating, obviously, and really know the person and would like to argue the case or something. So I would like to have somebody figure out a way around that, because I've thought about that one a lot and I can't figure it out, because it would be somewhat arbitrary given that there's no actual qualifications. At this point, having not heard all my colleagues yet, I think this going and doing them step by step in sort of a stack, some now, some the following week, some the following week, whatever the right cadence is, makes some sense. Because I also think that the implication was, maybe not the promise, but the implication was that they would all be getting interviews. So I hate to pass that, change that at this point. And if we do that, I would suggest that we start with what I'll call the gap areas. For example, UAC now already has had 3 commissioners leave as of the last meeting. So they're down by 3 and making decisions going forward for this month, at least with only 4 left. So I think we should do it. We should do it that way with gaps. PTC has 1, others might have, and then we could prioritize it like that. I would definitely suggest that we include HRC as part of essentially current business, because that will determine how many we interview and then select. So I would be supportive of Councilmember Elizabeth Hames' suggestion there. Thank you.
Any other before I go? Councilmember Pinker.
I just had a question. So I know sometimes people will submit applications and then self-select out. Can anyone speak to historically whether that's a trivial number or a decent number such that we might not have 50 some by the time we actually interviewed them? So because I don't know how early these lists were made public, but if I were on a list of 18, I might think a little differently than if I were on a list of 3.
I can speak to my experience. It's typically only a small handful of people who withdraw their applications. So maybe 1 or 2 usually. I've been here for 3 recruitments here in Palo Alto, and I can't think of any time it exceeded 2. And that was for the total recruitment. So, so far, these were published on Thursday evening, and we've received 1 withdraw.
Okay, I don't see any lights. I just want to say that, in the past, I have just appreciated anybody who had submitted an application. And so I just have always thought it was worthy to hear from them and actually interview. So I've always advocated for interviewing everybody. At the same time, I do see that this is a large number, and I appreciate everybody's application here. It's interesting to read a lot of the application notes and so forth that everybody submitted. I will say that I would support Councilmember Lowing's suggestion of seeing which ones are of more urgency. My understanding also is that March 31st is the expiration of many of their terms. And so at that point, there might be even more vacancies. So for some of these, we do have to get moving on it. And so I would be in favor of the CAO committee going forward with the interviews. But also looking forward to hearing from my colleagues. Councilmember Burt.
Yes. So when there was a first discussion of a referral to a committee, I was assuming that that was a referral to screen and reduce the number of candidates that we'd actually interview, as opposed to conducting the interviews on behalf of the council as a whole. And I'd be hesitant for being a member of the CAO committee. I don't think it would be right for the CAO committee to do the interviews on behalf of the council as a whole. And I do have a question on this suggestion that we would move forward with increasing the size of the Human Relations Commission this time. We can't act on that tonight, correct?
That's correct. I think you with the thought that you might do that, you could, when you do your interviews, designate a couple of alternates. And then if the council subsequently increased the number.
Well,
You
and could
draw.
we even tonight refer it to come back to the council as an agenda item on consent and just speed that up and get it in 2 weeks? Just simple action.
I suppose if a majority of council is supportive of that, this is unlike almost everything you do. Let me start again. This, among all of your tasks, is really the council setting up its own structure for getting advice and counsel from groups of residents, and you have a lot of discretion over it. So there's some aspects in which that's a little bit cutting corners, but why don't we move forward with that if a majority of council supports that idea?
Got it. And then lastly, with these terms that would be ending for a number of commission members on March 31st, there have been times in the past where we asked current commissioners if they would be willing to carry on an extended period. What council action would be required for that?
Actually, I think Madam Clerk can answer that.
Yes, I believe it's written in the code that says the commissioners, they serve at the pleasure of the council. So technically, and if their term is expired, but the council has not yet appointed a successor, they can continue in their term to serve until you appoint them. However, we have received notice from some of the commissioners that they are waiting for their term to end and they don't wish to extend it.
Right.
So they are anticipating you.
We don't have all that info. We do know that on the UAC, we actually have some commissioners who have either moved away or otherwise and are not eligible, and that goes into the prioritization of which board we would want to interview first. But I think we could have some combination of this that would give us more time. I mean, boards and commissions will frequently function short a member or two, but how do we minimize that in the next couple of months is our challenge. So I think we need to know the answer to this, which board or commission has members who would be willing to extend their terms another month or so. And then I guess I'm okay. Well, I could go either way on whether to have the whole council do all interviews or refer a screening of who would get in-person interviews, refer that to the CAO committee. But I wouldn't support the CAO committee interviewing on behalf of the whole council. So I don't know. I'll let others make that motion because I don't know where the consensus lies, but that's where I'm coming from.
Councilmember Burt, help us understand when you say the screening process, what do you see that process to be like?
It would be that the CAO committee would review and the council could give guidance tonight on to what extent to narrow it, or the council could say, give the discretion to the CAO committee to look through the candidate pool and basically recommend interviews of those candidates who they believe meet the qualifications that are expected. And respecting what Councilmember Lowing had said, that in some of these boards and commissions, we have less clear qualifications than others, but I think we have a sense of if someone has no background to speak of in an area and the application doesn't really give a compelling reason why that person's considered, we may not choose to interview that person at this time. One last comment on this issue of concern when people interview and they may feel discouraged. I think that is our obligation to really try to convey to folks that we truly not only value their application, but we've viewed them, many of them, as very qualified candidates, and we had to choose between qualified candidates. And I recall a number of occasions where somebody was appointed on a second or even a third application, but more often a second. I was really glad to see them back because I had expressed to them, I hope you will apply again. We've got 5 great candidates for 3 spots. And fortunately, some of them did. So I do want to make sure that we don't lose people's interests because they're misreading that. And I hope that they would understand the process, that just because, and often, they're an unknown and we have great candidate pools and not everybody can get appointed that time. And I would expect that they would, most of them would understand that if it's really explained to them. Thanks.
Councilmember Tanaka.
Yeah, so first of all, I just want to say thank you to the clerk for doing such a great job in recruiting. I think that's awesome. It's good to have this problem, and I hope you do it more often. So I would not be in favor of having a separate committee interview only. That doesn't make sense to me. I also don't think the separate committee should only select 2 interviews because it's effectively almost doing the same thing. What I would be in favor of is having us each getting a certain number of votes to say who we want to interview, and we interview those. So it's very simple, or we interview everyone. And then the last thing here is I think the HRC increase makes sense. I voted against it originally, and I still think it was the wrong decision to decrease it. So I would support that as well. Thanks.
Councilmember Lithcott-Heems.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Councilmember Tanaka, could you clarify and explain further your suggestion about how we might go about processing this as a whole? I tend to agree that I'm not in favor of the CAO doing a screening or certainly not a full vote. I would rather see all of us participate in all of this. Obviously, if we'd had 200 applications, we would have to have some screening process. We seem to maybe be at the upper limit of what's tolerable. So could you further explain your notion of how we would each weigh in, the number of votes we would each get, how we would ensure fairness whilst creating a system that is more efficient than everybody being interviewed by everybody? Thank you.
Sure. Yeah. So basically, for each slot, there's a certain number of open positions. So maybe there's a certain number of positions plus, maybe up to 50%. So basically, we can each of us select people on the list. We've all had a chance to look at the applications, right? And so we could all select someone that we think is appropriate, and the clerk could go through and then pick those. And it will probably will out people that don't have any support from any of the council members. So basically, the idea is each of us have. For each of these positions, a certain number of votes, and we did tonight, we could check off on this paper here and hand it to the clerk, and then we're done, basically.
If I may, I feel like we're having a back and forth here. Is it all right, Madam Mayor, if I just ask a follow-up?
Yeah, but our time is coming up, so I would like to ask for you to wrap it up on your back and forth.
Thank you. So if I'm understanding correctly, the clerk would let us know if an applicant received no votes, and they would be, that would be the termination point of their application, but anybody receiving at least 1 vote, are you suggesting would be interviewed?
Yeah, correct.
Thank you.
Okay, so I'm not visualizing that process very well. But I would entertain a motion if there is one.
Okay, I'll make the motion. So the motion is that we use this sheet of paper tonight to select. So let's use the HRC as an example. I think there's only 3, clerk, if I'm correct, statistically, we would have, each of us have up to 3 votes, right? Because there's only 3 people. So that's simple. HRC, there's what, 4? Is that right, clerk?
Yes, for 5 members, 5 applicants.
5 applicants, and how many people?
2 positions.
Okay, so then basically each 5 applicants and 2. Okay, so then each of us would have like 3 votes. So each of us would mark down 3, would use our pen and just mark it on the sheet and then hand it to the clerk, and then we're done. And then the clerk would tell us who didn't get any checks, basically. So it's basically 50% more than number of openings.